1997 that had been in Ontario for a couple of years, and I wasn't aware of it until I went in to renew my AZ trucking license to discover that I needed to get in front of this camera. And I had been used to getting a photo, they called it a photo ID, which was relatively straightforward and innocuous. They took a photo and I put it in my wallet and I went home and I felt very comfortable because at that time I believed it was my identification. Okay? So in '97 when I went in, I discovered that it wasn't my identification, but it was their identification, and it was going to go to a secure central facility. In order for it to be secure, I couldn't be told where it was. The only indication I had that this was a public-private partnership was the camera had a logo on it, Imaging Automation, which was a subcontractor to Electronic Data System, who is the company that issues all debit credit cards. So it's taken a little while to realize now that my driver license, health card, and all these things I don't have currently, but they are simply an unactivated debit credit card, and they're rapidly merging. They are soon going to be one. But this here was disseminated to the public in 2000, I think the date up there is 2002 or 3, I'm not sure. Again, the Toronto Star has been pretty good in letting us know about this stuff in a timely fashion so nobody gets scared. But you see, you'll notice there that these biometrics apparently come from our face or our hand. Apparently it comes here from the hand and the eye and the thumb and the face and the voice. All right? And we put these copies of these identifiers in this database. Okay? Now, see, they discovered see, it's kind of interesting. This is fairly dry material for people who like it's kind of embarrassing because see, there is a war going on here. And the war is going on between the eye at the top of the pyramid and the people at the base. But anyway, these here identifiers come from us. You see, we received our identification when we were born. And it didn't come from government. Although they wanted to get in there with a birth certificate and a few other things in their marriage license to give us this counterfeit identifier that they like to use for commercial contract law. But you see, we were given our own identification because there's no other face on the planet like the one you're looking at here, or any face you look at in this room. And there's no other fingerprint the same. There's no other DNA the same. There's no other iris. There's no other voice. And now they're databasing voice prints. That's why we're going to help you with give you better service. Yeah, you're going to get better service, all right, because you won't even have to use your phone number or any other identification. Your voice and its own will pull up your data file for it. Anyway, the interesting thing I found here, this was in 2004. Now, I had the problem back in 1997, and after getting a few tickets and going back several times, they asked me if maybe I wanted an application for photo exemption from the Ministry of Transport for Ontario. Okay. I said, well, that looks, why wouldn't we see that? That should be on the table, shouldn't it? Maybe I should have, there should have been, I tried to talk to the Minister of Transport saying I think we should have people waive their, like a signed agreement that they agreed to forfeit their identification. Because you see, when you know how this system works and you listen closely to what they say, quite often they're doing exactly what they're accusing you of, or the civilian population at large. And so what they say here is we want to prevent identity theft. We want to prevent identity theft. What they don't tell you that in the process of this is we're going to steal every identification. We're going to steal everybody's identification. And they're doing it with taking a counterfeit copy. It's a two-step process. Get everybody to give you a counterfeit copy, and then set it up where they are not allowed to use their old identification that they got from God. They're going to have to use our identification of them. And they think right now, the legislation went in 2005, it's called the Real ID Act in North America, through Congress. An $486 billion war appropriation bill for Iraq. And this was tacked on to the end and not one Congress member read it. There again, it's all because of the money. But that's what they're reading, because by 210, it could very well happen, they'll get their goal of no financial transactions without their identification. See, right now, I don't know if people followed the paper in the last week or two, now there's going to be no real estate transactions without photo ID. Are we familiar with that? Last week or 2 weeks? Yeah, well, you see, it's not the photo ID that is in the card that people have they want. They just want to see that card to know that you're in the database. Increasingly, you're going to see these little cameras go up. They're a little ball. There's 117 in the new courthouse in Owen Sound. They're going up around all service stations and checkout counters. Those cameras, people here are familiar with the 407. And we know how that system functions. That system functions, and our good old provincial government is collecting these ways for that. It's a Spanish firm that owns that, and they're putting those kinds of highways throughout North America down into Mexico in pieces. They're doing one in Sarnia, down in Texas. It's called the Texas Corridor. It's going up to Hudson Bay. The whole transportation network in North America has been switched from east to west, north to south. Is the main corridor. We heard about the Dubai issue over port authorities 2 or 3, 4 years ago. We didn't want that, so we woke up and nobody heard about it, but Kansas City is now a new port, right in the heart of America. Stuff comes in there, containers aren't touched till they hit Kansas City. In any event, this imaging automation company is a subcontractor, and I wrote them because that's the only contact. I couldn't get any information from MTO or anybody. And so I wrote imaging automation, and they sent me a lot of literature, and this was their corporate brochure. And I thought it was kind of interesting what they have in the front here, the corporate brochure, imaging automation. We've got better security, shorter lines, less paper, and world peace.
Without a check mark. 3
down, 1 to go. This identification system that they're putting you under is going to bring peace to the world. Just like the peace the Negro slave had in the plantation. You see, back in Africa, these people used God's identification in living. On the way across to America, they got an identification paper drawn up, and just to make sure they all look the same, we put a little brand on you. And when we sold the paper on the other shore, you followed the paper. And all the laws, privacy laws, all these circulated around it. And so they now, there's an awful lot of power in privacy, and I think we used to talk in terms of the public sector and the private sector. And now you see there's almost a reversal of roles here. We have the public sector going private, and the private sector going public. Because all your information is stored in central databases. There's a lot of information in here. I'm just going to read one little thing here that was written up by Imaging Automation.